9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Project Egg Show. I'm your host, Ben Gothard, and today we have the honor of speaking with Chris Naugle. How you doing today, Chris?
I'm doing great.
I'm so glad and so excited to have you on the show. I love your perspective on life, on business. We were just chatting a little bit beforehand. That just reaffirmed what I had, the preconceived notions that I had. It just reaffirmed them. And, dude, you're awesome. Let's share your awesomeness with the
Do
people.
it.
All right. So I promised you I was going to ask you one question. Only question that I ever script. So I want to know, what is your story?
All right. So my story, I got to take you back to when I was just a boy, and it comes back to when I was 16 years old. I'll skip all the rest of it, but I grew up in a lower middle class family. My wife would say I grew up poor, but I didn't. And when I was 16, I had to get a big boy job. So I got a job working at a restaurant. No big deal, right? Every day I went into work, I did what I was supposed to, and I went home. But the problem was, every day I went into work, I was degraded. I was made to feel worthless. I was made to feel like I could do nothing right. And it starts, for when you're that young, it starts to take over your life. So I started becoming depressed, and I didn't think I could do anything right. It led me to one of the most important pivotal periods in my life. And it was when I walked into work one day. I had it, and I did the unthinkable. I quit trading hours for dollars. But at that time, I was fed up. And, I ran home to my mom thinking she was going to be really upset. And I said, Mom, I quit the job. I can't handle it anymore. And I want to open my own clothing line in the basement. Can I convert the basement into a small office? And instead of her being mad, she was excited. She was so happy that I was trying to follow my dream. And she was happy that I rid myself of that. So that's where my first business started. 16 years old, Fat Clothing Company, PHAT, was born. And I started with a dozen t-shirts that I printed with my art teacher in school, sold those dozen shirts in school, 2 dozen, and, went on and on like that. And literally, my only burning desire at that point in my life was to be a pro snowboarder. I grew up in Buffalo, New York, really kind of in a nothing little town. And you don't really see pro snowboarders come out of Buffalo, but I knew that there was a way if I just worked harder than everybody else. So what I was doing is I was making these shirts. I was traveling every weekend to snowboard contests, and I would pack my bag full of all my samples. And I'd go around to all these shops that were putting these contests on and say, hey man, can you sell my clothes? Can I put them in here on consignment? And that's what I did. And that's how I got started. Well, a year later, when I was 17, I had my clothing in stores all across the States. And even I think I had a couple Canadian shops carrying it. And in this journey of becoming a pro snowboarder, I saw all these shop owners who literally, they were living the life. They were snowboarders, some of them were surfers, and they were just like, they went to work, but their work was their life. And I'm like, I got to have one of those. I have to have a store. So I came home and I had my next big idea, and it was Fat Man Board Shops. It was Fat Clothing Company, and I was the man, blend the two. And all I needed to do this store was $70,000. No big deal, right? A kid that had nothing, grew up with nothing, go out and find 70 grand. Well, I put my business plan together, and I ran out there to all the people I thought that had money. And I started asking, can I borrow money? Can I borrow money? Can you lend money? Can you help me do this store? And what do you think I heard? I heard, no way, absolutely not. And I almost gave up. I almost quit, but then I got a yes. Now, in everybody's life, you're going to hear a lot of no's, and every single no will put you one step closer to a yes. But most people quit 3 feet from gold. And I didn't, but that yes came from a person who wasn't in a financial position to help me, who didn't have money. And this person, and I'm writing a book right now called The Unconditional One. She is my unconditional one. And that person is my mother. Now, my mom had nothing. She gave up everything to raise me. We barely had a roof over our head. But what my mom did get is in the divorce, she got the house. And she had about $75,000 in equity. And we didn't know this, but the one bank said, well, if you put this house up for collateral, we will give your son an SBA backed loan. Now think about that for a second. I'm a 17-year-old punk snowboard kid with no history as being a business owner, no family of being business owners. No one in my family at all was a business owner. And here I am venturing down this road and asking my mom to put the only thing she has in the world up so that I could chase my dream. And she said yes. And she said, you know what? My whole life, I never chased my dream. And I'd be damned if I'm going to watch my son, my only son, not live his dream and go and do, what you hate to do every day. So that was the birth of Fat Man Board Shops. And it was hard, 5 years. I remember many nights in the back room, the stock room, crying myself like almost to sleep because I didn't know how I was going to get to the next day. But I made it through that period of time. Fat Man went on to be a success, and I went on to be a pro snowboarder, and that was some of the best years of my life. And so I had that life, right? I had the pro snowboarding, I had the shops, I had that lifestyle. And by early 2000s, I had built those stores up to 4 locations. I'd brought a partner in, and we were doing really, really well. Well, in the early 2000s, the plane hit the tower, and that created the recession. Now, I'd never gone through a recession. I didn't even know what the word really meant. I knew it wasn't good, but I didn't know. And when that hit, my retail store business just started going down. And all of a sudden I was in a position where I had to figure out, what am I going to do? I mean, am I going to close my shops, or am I going to just do a little bit extra and make this work? So I said, I'm going to get a part-time job. I'm going to either start delivering pizzas or do something just till this time goes by. And the funny thing is, I put my resume out and I landed in the financial world. I landed in the financial advisory world. Kind of weird. I don't know how I got there. And I remember doing my interviews. It was just like those movies, the big fancy dressed guy who drives the car, who slides the keys across the table. I can't remember what he drove. It was some fancy car. And I bought in. And the funny thing is at that point in time, in my mind, the snowboard mind, I was like, I'm just doing this part-time, man. I'm just going to make a little money here and I'm out. But I ended up loving it. I jumped a couple companies because that first company with the keys, that was just
Chris, I think we lost you for a second.
Oh,
ladies and gentlemen. Yep. So the last thing we heard was slid the keys across and so you bought into it, and in your mind you were saying this is only going to be, and I assume you're going to say part-time, but
you got it. Well, that's actually a great way to pause it. It was only going to be a part-time gig. And at that point in time, I actually started liking it. I loved it. And I took my focus off my stores and I started becoming like the financial advisor. I climbed the ranks, got all the certifications, all the licenses. I became a top performing advisor, and I was making a ton of money. I was still running the stores, still doing the snowboarding. So I had the lifestyle, but now I had money. And by 2008, man, I was crushing it. I was making high 6 figures. I was flipping a couple houses just because I had the life. And I got my next big idea. See, my lease was coming due on my plaza, and I'm like, I'm going to buy this dilapidated building. One of those buildings that when you drive by in your car and you see it, you're like, man, somebody's got to tear that thing down. Well, that was my dream. And I was going to buy it. I was going to develop it into a 3-unit strip mall and move my store in. And what a brilliant idea, right? Like, why pay someone else rent when you can pay yourself rent? But did you hear when I did this? Yeah. They always say timing's everything, right? Well, I got that all wrong on this one. And I borrowed money from a guy I shouldn't have borrowed money from. I call him Knuckles, but he gave me the money. He was crazy enough to say, hey kid, I'll give you the money, but don't screw up. And it got so bad. I mean, my retail store business plummeted. My financial business came to a screeching halt. I was down to the point where I had one payment away from being bankruptcy. I literally had enough money to make one more payment to this guy, and then I was bankrupt. And I'll never forget this time because it was one of those times where I'd gone from like the bottom to the top, or what I thought was the top. And I'm like, I made it. I never needed to ask many people for help. I was a self-starter. You don't get that ego. And at this point, I'll never forget one night, I had just moved my beautiful girlfriend into the house, and I had to come home late, and I had to look her in the eye and I had to say, sweetie, I need your help. I need your help to pay the mortgage. I need your help to pay the utilities. And you're not going to like this, but we have to rent that bedroom out because I can't make it. A lot of women would have went running for the hills, but she stuck it out, and we ended up getting married, and we made it through that period of time, literally barely made it through that. I didn't go bankrupt. I ended up paying Knuckles back. I had a serious, like, just luck, but I learned a lot. But at that point in time, after 2008, like, I was determined to make it. I was like, I'm not going to give up. I knew the only way to fail was to quit. And that just wasn't in my cards. And I loved Warren Buffett. Being in the financial world, he was my hero. And he always said, buy low. And I watched real estate values plummet. And I'm like, I'm going to get this. This is my mark. This is how I'm going to do it. So I started buying more buildings, more of those beat up old buildings that people were selling pennies on the dollar because they were losing them. So I started doing this, and I did this all the way to 2014. And the funny thing is, at that point, I still hadn't learned enough. And one of the things, I was like, the economy crash. I didn't learn from that because I thought everything in my life had happened because of the economy crashing, not because of my lack of knowledge. See, I hadn't connected the dots yet. So by 2014, everything seemed like it was good. I had 36 units, and you would think that I was there, but I was in trouble again. And I remember my wife at that time, we were living paycheck to paycheck. And she was just like, how can you have all this stuff, have this financial advisory business? I had sold the stores at that point, and I was literally paycheck to paycheck. I was over leveraged. I was under knowledge, and I was using the same conventional financial knowledge that I'd been taught up to this point. And I was on the hamster wheel. I couldn't get off of it. And by 14, I had to sell every one of those units, all 36 units again. I had to, this is what really got me. The units, whatever, let them go. But me and my wife had got, to a point where we were able to buy our dream house. And it was everything I had ever wanted in a house. And we had it barely a year and a half, and I had to sell the house. And we went through some hard times there. And literally at that point, I just wanted to throw the towel in. I just wanted to quit. I mean, things were not good. And I'd gone to the top, and I came down, and now I'm back. I was almost back up again. And now it all just crumbled down around me again. I couldn't figure out why this kept happening. And right before I was ready to throw the towel in, I got in the mail what I call the magic postcard. There was nothing magic about this postcard at all. Matter of fact, all it was a postcard saying, come to this seminar and learn how to flip properties. I'd already flipped a couple, so I wasn't going to this because I wanted to learn how to flip houses. And I know what most of your audience is probably thinking, dude, doesn't this guy ever learn? And you know what? I don't. But the truth of the matter is this: I wasn't going to this seminar because I wanted to learn. You see, I had been so humbled by my failures up to this point that I had nothing to lose. And by going to this seminar, I got a free iPod shuffle. They were giving away a free iPod shuffle if you showed up. So that's why I went. And day one, nothing special. Day two, everything changed. I was blown away. But I wasn't blown away because I learned a whole bunch of new stuff. You see, I learned one new thing. And that one new thing, and for many of you, it's probably the same, that one thing was everything. And here's what it was. I learned what the successful real estate investors were doing, what the wealthy were doing, and what the elite were doing was the complete opposite of what I was doing. And at that point, I started to learn that they had never taught me this stuff. Being an advisor and being at even a high level like I was, managing millions and millions and millions of dollars, they'd never taught me this. And I learned they never teach you this. This is that kind of knowledge you need to go out and seek because no one's ever going to teach it to you. Now, at that point, I dove in. And at that point, I started really just trying to follow wealthy people around, paying for mentors, doing anything I could, racking credit cards up to travel to these places to serve these people so that they would give me that one golden nugget. And I did this for years. And that is exactly what got me off the hamster wheel, because I learned that it wasn't about the money. It wasn't about the economy. It was about the information, the knowledge that I'd been given was all wrong. I was never taught how money worked. And the information, the knowledge that I really needed, that's what they didn't give me. And that's what kept me on the hamster wheel, the ups and downs. And, I always say this when I talk. I always say, how many people do you know that have had money and then it's all gone? They have money again and it's all gone. I mean, we know a lot of people like that. Well, I was the living proof of that. Had a lot of money and it was gone. And how can a financial advisor who is supposed to know everything about money not know this? But at that point, that's when it all started to change. When I started diving into this, I got off the hamster wheel and my business was a rocket ship straight straight up. I mean, and this is going back to 2014 when this all started. It wasn't easy, but today my life is completely different. Me and my wife, we operate about, I think actually 8 companies now. It was 7 not long ago, but we have 8 companies. We're tens of millions. We flipped hundreds of houses. We have a wholesale operation. We have 73 rentals right now, and that's not our core business. And the big thing I do is I travel around the country and even Canada speaking on how money works, because I've learned the secrets of the wealthy. I've learned what the wealthy do with money. And we even had a show on HGTV called Risky Builders. That was last year. And that show, even though it didn't go on to a series, it just made it to a pilot and it did great ratings, but we didn't move on. That show forced me to retire from the financial business because I had to make a decision. HGTV show or financial advisor. They said, you have to decide. And I said, I'm going to do the show. And I sold my practice. And at that point, when the show didn't happen, I felt like I was crashing down, but it was the greatest thing ever because I wasn't crashing down. It just opened the door for me to go out and tell people the truth about, about money and about the things that we're not taught. I call it the big lie because my whole life I worked in the big lie. I lived the big lie. And now I know the whole other side. I know how money works and I know what people do with it and how they use it. And it's the complete opposite thing that I was taught my entire life. So that's kind of my story in a nutshell. There's a lot of other things that happened there, but I'll stop right there.
Well, I love the little carrot that's now been dangled because I mean, I want to know now, of course. And I have so many questions about your history, but let's move forward. Let's keep plowing forward. Let's talk about these secrets, like, the way that money works, this knowledge and wisdom that you've gained. And I'm specifically interested in the part that is so contrary to what everybody else thinks or what is taught in the mainstream.
So I gotta be careful with this because I tend to go down rabbit holes because I know too much. But let's just start with this. So as an advisor, we were always taught a lot of things about money, right? We were taught about how to properly plan people's retirement, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, derivatives, all that good stuff, that we all know about. And I was taught about the stock market. And the biggest thing I did as an advisor at the tail end is I did a lot of fee-based management, but I studied market patterns, the ups and downs of the markets and how they work and how there's always a very rhythmic pattern. And you can play that pattern on an institutional side and make millions and billions of dollars doing this for these institutions. And that's what I did. So one of the big things that I would tell everybody, and there's a lot, is people just, they're led by people, and I'm not just picking on advisors, but they're led by people that provide advice because they are paid to provide you that advice. And I'm not discounting the fact that you should pay somebody for good advice, but if that payment, we talked about this earlier, if what somebody's going to make is the sole reason they steer you this direction, is that really the best advice? Banks, for example, who is the smartest person in the world when it comes to money? It's banks, isn't it? Well, what do banks really do? Have any of you thought about what banks really, really do? You see, here's what we do. We are trained that when we get paid, we take our money and we deposit it at the bank. And the bank in return pays us an interest rate sometimes, but they pay us an interest rate. And then what does the bank do? That deposit that we just made, that's a liability to the bank. So the bank has to convert liabilities into assets, and how they do it is through loans. They loan that money back out to whoever else, maybe back to us. When we want a house, all money is, it's a means of exchange. So money for house, house for money, money for car, car for money. Well, that's all banks did, is they got really, really good at using other people's money to basically make money. And here they loan that out. So that, let's just pretend that you find a really, really good bank. And I'm going to tie back to this really good bank, but this really good bank pays you 4%. Now, I know probably not one person listening to this is making 4% at their bank in their checking and savings account, but we're just going to pretend that you found a good one and that, that good bank pays you 4%. But they go out and they take your deposit and everybody else's and they loan it out. And on every one of those loans they do, they're turning your liability into an asset and they're making a spread. So if they're paying you 4, maybe the mortgage is 6, maybe the car loan's 8, Maybe the home remodel is 9. Maybe the debt consolidation is 12. If you added all that up, and if I did it the proper way, you would say maybe the bank is making what, 16 to 20% off of your money. But that's not really what banks are doing, because you're just doing the math. And that's what we're taught to believe. We are taught to believe the difference between the 4 I'm making and the 20 the bank's making is 16. So that's how much the bank made, which is a good day in the office. But what you're not doing is the math. The bank is actually making between 400 and 1,200% on your money, on every one of our money. So we're taught to basically take our good dollars today, our good dollar, because all of you would agree that your money is most valuable today. And if you don't believe that, take a look at how many candy bars you could have bought 20 years ago for $1. Point made. And also, you should also understand that your good dollars today are the most valuable, because they're not, when you put money away, all that's going to happen is taxes are going to go up, or they're going to find more things to tax us on. So we're putting our good dollars away, and we're going to get paid back with weaker dollars. But that's what we're taught to do with our money. That's how we put our retirement away, right? 401ks and IRAs. What do? We put it in there because we get a small tax deduction today. So we're not paying taxes on the seed, okay? We're paying taxes on the harvest. And then someday later, 59.5 is the magic number, but most people don't touch it till 62 to 65 because of Social Security, which, by the way, won't be around when we retire. But we put our good dollars away, and we wait for all that money to come back later. And by doing that, we have literally just enabled institutions, banks, to use our money to go out and make 400 to 1,200%. So if you were really smart, and Warren Buffett is one that I look at, and he says if poor people would just do what the rich do, they wouldn't be poor anymore. If we were just smart enough to mimic what I just told you banks do, because that sounds pretty good, right? 400 to 1,200%. What if we could mimic exactly what banks do, but what if we could do it better than banks? See, they'll never teach you this, because if you did, you'd put the banking system out of business. So it'll never happen, but there is a way to do that. And I teach, and what I like to show people is take your things that you have today. I don't like talking to people about their savings anymore. I did enough of that as an advisor. I talk to people about what they spend, because really you want to be successful and wealthy. Focus on what you spend, because I'll tell you this, 90% of every dollar for the average American is spent on other people. It is given to other people. We keep 10% of every dollar, and then we only save, this is the correct statistic, 5 to 6% of that. That seems wrong. So what if we could just take things that we do, like our car purchases, our home purchases, all the entertainment and everything we do, and what if I could just show you how to get all the interest back, and how to take all that interest and shift it from your spending category over to your savings? You would increase your net worth or your savings rate over 50%. You wouldn't get it all back, because we always have to buy things, and some of what we buy is paid principal, but you can shift that. So in doing that, now that sounds really complicated, but you know what? It is so simple. All you need to do is mimic what the banks do and what the wealthy do. And this is what I've learned. You see, all the banks and the wealthy have done is controlled other people's money, but they've also learned how money works and the flow of money. And here's the most important thing. You need to get off the hamster wheel of thinking that you need to put your money away and wait for it to grow, because that is how they're going to make money, not you. That is how you're going to lose money and never get ahead in the world. And that's why everybody, I call it financial slavery, but that's why so many people are trapped and they can't figure out how to get out of the mess. That's why we have a debt problem. But the debt problem is created by whatever you want to call it, the institutions, right? They want us to be in debt because that gives them control. And if they can control that, they control everything. So I'm going to kind of get to a point here. I just want to frame up like what I'm talking about. It's not something radical. It's not some magic investment. Matter of fact, it's a mindset. It's the same idea of when you were a kid, you learned how to ride a bicycle. Pedals go down, bike goes forward, handlebars to the right, you go to the right, to the left, you go to the left. But what if you had to learn how to ride a bicycle all over again? What if you had to learn a bicycle that when you turn the handlebars to the right, the bike went to the left? And when you turn them to the left, it went to the right. Could you ride that bike? Chances are you could not. Actually, I can tell you right now, you definitely couldn't ride the bike. But it's the same thing with money. We've been taught how money works our entire life. And we've been taught that it works this way and this way only. And we've never really stepped out of that to learn that that's not how it really works. And the backward bicycle, If you practiced and you tried and you kept practicing, you eventually would be able to ride the backward bicycle. And that's what I do. And that's what I learned that allowed me to learn how money works. Is I learned how to ride the backward bicycle. I learned how the wealthy use money and how banks do, and I've mimicked it, and I've done it at a 5th grade level. I've found a way to basically do everything they do literally in a 5th grade level, which everybody that always hears me talk says, if that's that simple, why doesn't everybody do it? And that is the most important question anyone could ask, because you're right. If it were that simple, why wouldn't everybody do it? Well, here's the reason why. People will not change because they are stuck in a pattern. And that pattern, although you might think it's easy to break, it is not. And even when you want to break the pattern, there's the outside influence of the people closest to you that say, oh, you shouldn't do that. Oh, why would you talk about doing that? Why would you do that? That's not how we did it. This is what we do. You're always going to have those people saying you shouldn't, why would you do that? And you got to start asking those people, have you done it? If you're going to tell me I can't and I shouldn't do this, have you done it? Because I don't think you have. So please step aside. You are now in time out. But that's hard, right? That's hard to tell your loved ones, your family, that you don't want their advice. And that's why most people, and I call it the 95%ers, the 95%ers are the people I can't help. I can only help 5%. I can help the 5% that are out there seeking this knowledge. And it's so simple. I can show you how to do it with your 401k savings. I can show you how to get off that hamster wheel, and I can show you how to do it without having to pay taxes on that money, because there is ways to access that money that you can basically take that money and put that money into motion and double your returns. IRAs. Mitt Romney, when he was in politics, he was scrutinized because his IRA had gains that were so ridiculously high that everybody said it's physically impossible. The smartest guys on Wall Street said you couldn't have made this money if you got everything right, and there's no way. It's impossible. You were doing something illegal. You had something, and they tried nailing him down right on this. And all he did is he understood what a self-directed IRA is. And he understood that his money was better suited, not in the stock market, but in private investments. So he invested in companies, and he invested in people, and he invested in their teams. And because of that, his self-directed IRA skyrocketed. And when they figured it out, literally, they all should have just went like this. Oh my God, it was right there the whole time. But why don't we learn these things? Why doesn't the average person learn these things? And it's so simple. It goes back to what I said earlier. Nobody can get paid to show you these things. Self-directed IRAs, who's getting paid? You are. Okay. What I show with 401ks, who's getting paid? You are. Not the institution. I tell you, get all your money out of the stock market. The smartest thing I tell people to do right now is get every penny you have out of the stock market, because Warren Buffett said it best. To make money in the markets, all you have to do is buy low, sell high, and don't lose money. Seems easy, right? Well, everybody understands the buy low, sell high, or they think they do, but they don't really understand don't lose money thing, because it's like Bed Bath and Beyond. We understand the bed and bath, but what is this Beyond thing? But that's like don't lose money. But Warren's such a simple guy. Then he just says, well, to not lose money, all you need to do is follow 1 and 2. When you buy low. Okay. And when you sell high. Well, 2008 was over 10 years ago. And markets, I'll just give you a little tip. Markets work in patterns, very predictable patterns, 7 to 10 years. We're past that. We got a strange political thing going on here. We're past the 10th year. And everybody's like, oh, this time it's going to be different. No, it's not. It's going to go down. And I'll tell you right now, it's going to go down in the next 6 to 8 months. Mark my words, put it on your calendar. I don't know what it's going to look like, how far it's going to go down, but I will tell you, because I know that's going to happen. And if you knew the market was going to go down, wouldn't it be smart to just sell and just get out? If you're in a 401k or an IRA, just move everything to the cash account. Sure, you're not going to make anything in that, or maybe make a couple points. That's it. But isn't that better than losing 5, 10, or 20%? And every time I look somebody in the eye and I say, would you rather make 1% or lose 20? Oh, well, that's simple. I'd rather make 1%. Then why are you still in the market? Oh, I don't know, because I don't know. It's always that, but it's that simple. And the other thing I do is I teach a 200-year-old strategy. It's a 200-year-old banking concept that was created by the Carnegies, the Mellons, the JPs, the Morgans. It's been around forever. And it's the most boring, simplest thing that you could ever do with money. And how I do it is I tell people, you want to learn how to get all the money back for every car you will ever buy, drive, and own, right? Well, that's a cool thing. Well, I tell people how to do that, and I tell them the vehicle and the machine we use to do it, And then half the people are like, oh, there's no way. There's no way. I've never been taught that. Nobody's ever told me that. And that's not how that thing works. It is. So I'm going down a rabbit hole, but basically it's literally so simple, but you have to first understand, you have to learn how to ride the bike backwards. You have to be able to change your whole mindset on how money works. And once you do that, I'm telling you, everything will change. Everything. And when I talk, I tell people how to do this. I go through the specifics of exactly how this works. And at the end, I don't have anything to sell you. I don't have a magic product. I don't have a magic program. I don't have a magic button that you hit. It's simply your decision to change your way of thinking and the way you live your life. And it doesn't mean, and here's the thing, the way you live your life, I say that and people are always like, oh, he wants me to stop spending money on going out, stop spending money on Starbucks, don't do this. Oh, David Ramsey said, save all the money and cut down all the things that I love. No, heck no. Dude, you got to live your life. You got to enjoy your life, and you got to do things that you love. So I show people how to do this without giving up any control of their money, without changing anything in their life, without working any harder or any longer, and without hustling any harder. Seems like it's a very easy thing to do, right?
Well, let's jump in it. Let's talk about it.
So where do we even begin? All right. So let's start here. So told you a little bit about kind of the car, right? And how to get all the money back for every car you're ever going to buy, drive, and own. So I'd have to kind of take you through a process and explain to you the method. And the method is basically, it's simple. It involves several things. Number one, it involves a machine that you have to use. It's a banking instrument that you have to use, and it's been around forever. And here's the machine. And when I tell you this, your eyes are probably going to roll back like everybody else. The machine that the wealthy use and the machine that the banks use is whole life insurance, dividend paying whole life insurance from a mutually owned company. Now, everybody knows whole life insurance, and I sold an awful lot of it when I was in the financial business. They know it as life insurance, right? I want to buy life insurance so that one day when I die, my family or somebody gets paid off with tax-free dollars. Simple concept. But what they don't understand is whole life. That is what it was created for. But back 200 years ago, when the Carnegies didn't want to put their fortunes in banks because they were worried about losing it all, they had to go to the next best thing. And don't take this from me. You can research all this. It's all over the place. The wealthy found the safest place to park money was in insurance companies because number one, they're ultra conservative. They've been around hundreds of years. They don't take risks. They don't take gambles. They're regulated from the state and the federal level, so they can't do anything stupid. And the best thing about an insurance company is everybody's just paying them money. Everybody's just depositing money. So their money just keeps building. And all the insurance companies need to do is find smart ways to use that money. And that's what they did. So these guys created a banking system using whole life insurance. And today it goes by a lot of names. You can call it privatized banking. You can call it infinite banking, which is the name that I use. You can call it the money multiplier. There's a lot of names, but it's basically the simple concept of using whole life as a banking system. Now, the first thing I got to explain to people is it's not a normal insurance company that I'm talking about. The way that they're built to do what I'm going to tell you in a second is very different than the way you would buy life insurance or whole life insurance for a death benefit. We don't even care about the death benefit. It's there, but we don't care about it because it's built for banking, not for death benefit. So we have to kind of discount that. Second thing we have to do is we have to build it so that almost all of the money that you put in, we call them premium deposits, goes to the cash value. If it doesn't go to the cash value, then it's going to pay for the life insurance and you're not going to be able to use that money fast enough to make it worthwhile. So to do that, you go to a regular life insurance agent or a financial advisor and you say, okay, I want you to build me a whole life from one of these 10 companies that are specialists in infinite banking. And I want you to take a 60% cut in pay. Can you do that? And the person's going to be like, wait, what? 60% cut in pay? Why? Well, I got to make the money, not you. So in order for me to do that, you have to take a 60% cut and pay so that all that money goes into my cash. Well, most advisors wouldn't do that, or they would just say, no way, or this isn't possible. And they'd steer you the other direction because we're not taught that. So as advisors, we were never taught about this. Remember I said that earlier? We were never taught these things. But so first you build the machine. Once the machine is built, you have to capitalize it. And in life, everybody's looking for the quick fix, right? The quick millionaire story. Where's the easy button that makes me a millionaire? Is it digital media? Is it, I make a funnel and I put a product up and I'm going to be a millionaire overnight? Yeah, right. Okay. But anyway, so everybody wants that quick fix, which is where this is hard, because if you were going to build your own bank, it would take you time. It would take you years to capitalize and to build the building and to capitalize and get people to put money in your bank. Well, this is the same thing. But in building your bank and capitalizing your system, which is going to take a 3-year period, so it's a marathon, it's not a sprint, you instantly, and when I say immediately or instantly, I mean within the first 30 days, we'll start using this money. And what we do is we create this machine and we capitalize it. But now let's go to the cars. So now you understand what the machine is. Now I kind of got you over as to it's not your traditional whole life. And a lot of people are still going to be like, well, I would never use a whole life. Well, if you wouldn't use a whole life, then why is it that the banks are the #1 purchasers of whole life insurance in the world? They own more whole life insurance than they do land and buildings combined. And you've seen some of these banks, right? They're big buildings. Well, they have more life insurance, more whole life insurance than they have anything else like that. And there's a reason for it. And there's a reason there's so many vice presidents. But anyway, let's move on. You want to buy a car, you capitalize your bank. Remember earlier I said if you found a really, really good bank that paid you 4%, that'd be pretty cool. Well, this is that bank. It pays you a guaranteed 4%. It pays you a guaranteed 4% tax-free, and the money grows tax deferred. So now it's sounding really good from that standpoint. But in third year, after you capitalize your bank, and let's just say you put 10 grand into your bank, you deposit every year, 10 grand, 10 grand, 10 grand. And in the third year, you decide to go out and you buy a car. And let's just pretend you buy a $25,000 car. I don't care whether you think, no, I wouldn't drive a $25,000 car. Look, this works for a Ford Focus or a Maserati. The numbers just change. So just forget about the type of car. It's just a concept. You take $25,000 from your banking policy, right? And you buy the car. And remember, it's exchange, money for car, car for money. And now you have to really think about, if you were to buy a car, how would you buy it? You'd go out and you could take a loan out from the bank. And if you took a loan out from the bank, they'd give you the money, you buy the car, and then you make payments to the bank. So that's one way to do it. The second way is a lease. Same idea. Bank gives you the money, you buy the car, you pay the bank, but then they take the car back. So you lose the asset. That's pretty crappy. And people make all the reasons in the world why to lease or why it's a good thing, but not going to go there. Or you just pay cash for a car. And that is the worst thing you can do. If you pay cash for a car, you lose all the interest earning power on your money. So, and also you just bought the worst depreciating asset you can ever buy in your life. So it's just not a good idea. So we take 25 grand from our banking policy, we buy the car. But now what we're going to do is, instead of paying a bank, we're going to pay ourselves back with interest, because the #1 thing that the wealthy do is they pay themselves first and they pay themselves with interest, because that's what banks do. So that's what the wealthy do. You buy a $25,000 car and you pay yourself back, and you pay yourself back every single year, $6,000. It's about what the car payment would be. So in the end, when you've got 5 years past that point in time, so I believe that would put us at what, the 8th year, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yep. 8th year, you now have the car paid for. You've paid your bank back. So we put 100 grand in over 10 years. We paid 30 grand back for the car. So now we've got 130 in, but now 100 minus 30, because we bought the car. So let's just basically, the simple math of it is, I'm trying to do it in my head. Normally I do it on a screen. Your net injection into your banking policy after you bought the car is 75 grand. And in that 8th year, if you looked at the cash value in your banking policy, it would have about $68,000. But that's not all the money back. But I don't know many people that have gotten 90+% back for every car that they buy. And what you just did is you literally just got 90% back for that car. You bought the car, you capitalized your bank, and now you have almost every penny back in your bank again. And here's the reason why. It's quite simple. Every other bank that you've ever put money into, if you had 100 grand in there and you took 100 grand out, how much interest is the bank paying you? Nothing. This bank, when you have 100 grand and you take 100 grand, if it's built properly, you're making 4% plus dividend on the 100 grand, even though you took the money out. That's the secret sauce. That's how it works. But let's go back to the car, because I did tell you we were going to get all the money back for all the cars you're going to buy, drive, and own. And I only showed you how to get a little more than 90% back. So years 8 through 12, let's say. we're not going to put any more money in our bank. We've already put 100 grand in our banking system. We're not going to capitalize it anymore. But your car is starting to get a little beat up. So you want a new car. So in the 9th year, we're going to buy a new car, 25 grand. And what are we going to do? We're going to play honest banker, and we're going to repay our bank back with interest. So 6 grand. So we're going to put 30 grand into our bank, right? That's all we put in because we just paid for the car. You would have already done that. We just did it to our bank. 30 grand minus the 25 means your net injection would be $5,000. And this is easier if I'm showing you the numbers on the screen. I'm just trying to frame this up. At the end of that whole thing, here's what happens. You have roughly about $93,000 in your banking policy for putting a $5,000 net injection in. You have $93,000 in there. You have 2 cars fully paid for in the driveway. So you now have gotten all the money back for both of those cars. You can sell the cars, you can gift them, you can do whatever you want with the cars. Doesn't matter. And all you did is took out this silly whole life insurance policy and you treated it like a banking policy and you were honest with yourself and you paid yourself first. If you did that and you saw that on the screen, it would show you how to always buy cars this way. There'd be no reason why you should ever buy a car any other way, except for one thing. People have to capitalize their bank. They have to save. So you'd have to have put the 10 grand in for the first, well, let's call it the 10 years, but really the first 3 years to buy the car. So that's how that works. And we use that same methodology to pay off debt. And that is the most incredible thing because right now, I told you we spend 90% of every dollar on debt on other people. Other people are enjoying our 90%. And guess who they are? They're the banks. So if I could just shift all the interest, like I just showed you how to do there, over to your savings category, that would work. Well, take a look at your personal situation. Anyone that's watching this, how much money do you spend every month on credit card payments, on car loans, on mortgage payments, on anything that you're paying to other creditors? How much is it? Well, it's different for everybody. Some people it's 5 grand, some people it's 7 grand, whatever. It doesn't matter. The numbers are irrelevant. What if I could show you how to get all of that money back every single month that you pay by creating a banking system like I just showed you for the car? But now what we have to do is we have to do the most important thing. When we set up our banking system, we have to look at what we're saving in regular traditional vehicles, 401ks, IRAs, savings. You're just putting money into your savings. And you take that and you take a chunk of that and you say, I'm going to put it over into this new bank. This new bank is going to pay me 4% on my money. This new bank that's going to even pay me when I take my money out. And what we're going to do is immediately, once we put money into this bank, we're going to start using that money. We're going to take that money out and we're going to pay off debt. And I don't care what it is. We structure all this for people. We do the mapping and we're going to pay one credit card off. And once that credit card's off, most people would be like, got rid of that credit card and that's it. They never pay themselves back. They just pay the credit card off and then they rack the credit card back up. So here you're going to pay the credit card off. And if you paid it off and it was $100 a month credit card, we're going to take that $100 a month and we're going to put it into a newly created bank account. Whatever, we're going to call it a segregated account. You're going to put that money in a new segregated bank account and we're just going to let that money build. So now next year, we're going to recapitalize our bank, put money in our bank again, and then we're going to take money out instantly. We're going to pay off the next group of credit cards. And whatever we were paying those credit cards, we're going to put that money into that segregated bank account. And you keep repeating this. Well, if you did this, and again, I'm not going to go crazy with this because it's way easier when I'm showing you the numbers, but what we were able to do, and this is my best example, we had a chiropractor. Chiropractor was saving like 40 grand a year in his savings account. We took 25 and we put it into this banking system. And he had $478,000 in third-party debt to 9 vendors. And if we just took the 25 grand he was going to put into this banking policy and we paid it on that 478, that debt, it would have taken him 19 years to get out of debt. By doing what I kind of just showed you how to do, by taking money out, paying the debtors off, recapturing and recycling all the money you were giving away to other people, and putting it over here and then just redeploying that until all the debt was gone, we eliminated all of his debt without changing any. He never lost control of his money. I want that to be very clear. He never gave up control. It was always, he could use it for anything he wants. And he paid it all off in 6.5 years. 6.5 years, erased $478,000 in debt, never saved another penny more than he was saving, never changed the control of his money, never worked any harder, did everything the same, except for now he's debt free. And then what we did is we said, Doc, remember that condo and that house that we paid off? Let's just take those 2 payments that we were paying to the bank for those, because you would have just paid those off over the next 20, one was like 22, one was like 26 years. You would have just kept paying them anyway. Why don't we take that money and keep saving that money in this banking system that pays you 4%? And by doing that, if we just fast forward that, and he's still doing that, he would then keep in his family, never give up control of $789,000, I think is what it would have worked to. And he would have just given that money away to the bank. Never thought of 2 cents about it. He would have had a house and a condo out of it. But what he did, he already owned the house and the condo. Now he actually saved the money he would have paid to the banks, and it's going to be about almost $800,000 in his bank account by changing nothing else. One thing is all he did. So that's just showing it using that banking system, but I could show people how to do that using their 401k. I could show them how to erase credit card debt using their 401k. I love talking about home equity lines of credit right now. I call it hidden equity. I could show people how to use the equity in their house to pay for their car, because people use the equity in their house to buy things that are depreciating in value, or to use things that cost money and they never get that money back. What people need to do is they need to take money out that's sitting lazy on their couch, doing nothing but watching their TV. And that's how I always say it. I say lazy money is no different than parking your money on your couch, turning the TV on, give it a soda and give it your popcorn and let it sit there all day while you go to work. Because that's what we do with money. That's what we're taught to do. So if you took that money and you said, you're going to go to work, first off, your money will listen to you, unlike your, maybe, a child, maybe not listen to you, maybe not your wife or your husband. They don't listen very well sometimes. Your money will listen. When you tell it to do something, it does that. You take that money and you put that money out there and you put it in motion, you make it work. So what I do with my money is I loan it out. I loan it just like banks. I loan it on real estate. Why real estate? Because I believe in real estate. I trust real estate. It's a tangible asset. It's an asset that I don't think can ever go to zero. So I loan my money out on real estate deals, and I let people use my money at a ridiculously high interest rate, about 12%. And then when they get done using my money, because they don't want to pay me anymore, they take a home equity, or they take a bank loan, or they sell it, or they flip it, or they do whatever, and they pay me my money back. But what I essentially did is I just became the bank. I'm using someone else's money to make money. And my mom, who's the simplest woman on earth, my unconditional one, my mom's house, which is still the same house I grew up in, back when I was a kid, that house pays for my mom's car. And that's how we do it. I loan that money out on real estate deals. I take a secured position in the real estate, and those payments that come in every month, mailbox money, those payments pay mom's car. And then the worst part about it is when one of these loans pays back and the money comes back, mom's car payment stops getting paid. And then she's like, oh my God, what did you do before? And then I got to go find another deal. That's the hardest part. So you literally just need to think like a bank, act like a bank, and mimic what banks and wealthy people do. And you can use any vehicle you want. I don't care. You can use that whole life, that infinite banking policy, because that's the most efficient way I've ever found to do it. Or you can use 401ks, you can use IRAs, hidden equity, anything. It works the same. It just one works way better than the rest.
So I want to make sure that we're on the same page here. When you're saying you set up this kind of very personalized, customized bank, your own bank. Mm-hmm. When you say you capitalize it and then you take money out of that bank, does that mean that you are borrowing against your own money, basically? Yep.
You are using your own money as collateral. And you know where the money's really coming from. Remember I said, if you had 100 grand and you took 100 grand out, you're still making 4% on your 100 grand. The thing I didn't explain, because I can't explain it without showing it in a visual way, is it is possible to make more money earning 4% when you're paying 6%. So if you were making 4% in the bank and you went out and you took out a car loan that was paying 6%, I always ask people this. I said, over 5 years, all things considered the same, will your 4% make more money than you pay the bank paying 6% on the exact same? And everybody would say, no, 6 minus 4 is 2. No, I'd lose 2%. Absolutely incorrect. If you do the math, you would always make more money earning 4% when you're paying 6%. And it's simple. I mean, once I tell you why, you'll know your car balance is going down and your balance over here is going up. I mean, it's simple, right? That's why. Well, here's what insurance companies do, and this is why they're so smart. Insurance companies have billions of dollars sitting around at any given time in what they call surplus. And because they're so conservative and because that money is earmarked for paying claims, they can't risk that money. They have to do really smart things with it. Just like banks, tier 1 capital, they have to put it in guaranteed instruments. So what the insurance company does, the insurance companies, only certain ones, there's not all of them, so don't think this is every insurance company. What they will do is they will say policyholders like me and like anyone else that has a whole life from one of these companies, they will say, we will loan you the money and we will just use your cash value as collateral. We'll loan you the money and we use your cash value for collateral and we'll charge you an interest rate. And it is not 6%, but I just use that because that's the highest I've ever seen. And by doing that, the insurance company is making guaranteed interest. It's secured by the cash value, which will be paid whether you live or die, because if you die, what happens? A death benefit gets paid. And if that death benefit gets paid and you got an outstanding loan, they just reduce the death benefit by the loan. But the way we build them, the death benefit always goes up. So that doesn't really matter. So yeah, that's exactly what they're doing. You just nailed it. I mean, they're just lending the money out and securitizing their loan by using your cash value.
That's pretty awesome.
It's beyond awesome. You should see it on paper.
I mean,
and it's funny, for all the years since 2003, I was in that industry, and never once for 16 plus years did they ever teach that to me. And I remember after I retired, I took my managing partner out to lunch. He actually ended up paying, but whatever. I took him out to lunch and I said, John, you know what infinite banking is, right? Oh yeah. Why don't you teach your reps this? It is the most powerful thing on earth. He's like, I would agree. It's phenomenal. And I said, well, why didn't you teach me this? I could have changed people's lives. I could have done so much more for people and for me. I could have crushed it. I would have been a top agent. I would have been number one if I knew this. And you know what he says? He said, Chris, absolutely correct. He said, but remember what my job is, and remember what every financial company's job is. It's to recruit fresh agents and fresh reps to go out there and to sell products for us. So they have a hard enough time making it. So I bring all these new guys in, and I've got I think it's less than a 10% chance that these guys are going to make it past 5 years. That's how it is in the financial world, because it's all commissions. Remember that. So they're not going to make it past 5 years. And then I go to them with the greatest thing, this great concept, this infinite banking thing, this thing that will change everything. And then I got to tell them, guys, to do this, to have all this work for you and be able to sell this and go out and change people's lives in your life, you have to take a 60% cut in pay. And you know what would happen? His retention rate would drop from the 10 or 5% that it is to almost nothing, because nobody would have made it if they made 60% less. And I wouldn't have either. So he said that, and he said, so now I know about this, and the companies know about this, and everybody knows about this in this industry, but we can't tell anybody because we'd lose our entire workforce. We'd lose our entire sales force. So it has, and it will probably always remain a secret of the wealthy, as you call it. And I said, you know what, John, you couldn't have answered that any better to me, because, I was mad coming in here being like, why wouldn't you teach this? And now I completely understand. And now I know that I really have something very powerful here to share to the world. That's what we do.
Again, that's pretty cool.
It's pretty awesome.
So I want to talk about when it hit you, like when this moment of realization.
2014.
In 2014, when you learned this, what was the very first thing that you did?
Got mad. I got really mad because I had struggled so hard and I had lost so much and I had given up so much up to this point, when the answer was in front. The answer was right under my nose the entire time. I had it right there. And I'd never been taught how to use it, but because I've been taught all the ways to do, in 2008, I got crushed. Not only did I get crushed because of the strip mall and all the things I was doing, but I had money in the market. And just like everybody else, I didn't do the right things with it. I didn't get out. I rode that roller coaster all the way down. And you know what the worst part is? And they always, advisors and me always say, I used to say, just all you need to do in the market to make money is just be in it for the long haul. And that is the truest statement. If everybody could just put money in the stock market and just let it sit for 20 years and take it out at a high point somewhere there on out, you'd all make money. Almost all of you would make money. But here's the reality of what happens. The market goes like this, up, down, up, down. It's like a roller coaster, right? And we know that if we just stay on that roller coaster, we're going to make money. But when a market goes down, 2000s, 2008, and I'm speaking from personal examples, okay, because it's easier for me to just be personal than to sit there and say all of you are doing it, but you probably can relate. When the market tanks and everything gets hard and you start getting pinched and you start realizing you can't afford the car, you can't afford your house, you can't afford rent, you can't afford to put food on the table, you can't afford your kids' tuition, all of a sudden that long-term savings philosophy goes away and you start just thinking about survival, because it's survival instinct. And you just say, you know what? Yeah, it's great, but I need that money now. And I don't care how much it's going to cost me. I don't care how much I'm going to lose. I don't care what the penalties are. I need my money because my family is more important. And it is. But That's why so many people can't make the long haul. It's because the fear, the emotion, and the reality of what really happens in those down cycles is very real. And it happens every single time. And I hate to say this, but this is how the wealthy stay wealthy, because they know how to play that downside and they make all that. Warren Buffett says it perfect. And I hate to keep going back to the guy, but he makes it simple. When others are greedy, be fearful. When others are fearful, be greedy. What is Warren Buffett buying right now? Nothing. What was he buying in 2008, 9, 10, 11? You saw him on the news every day buying this company, that company, this, doing this. The dude couldn't put enough money in the system because he knew something that we all know, but we all fail to act on. Sorry. Again, I told you I go in these rabbit holes because I get so caught up into this. But what you just asked me, I just explained right there. I was frustrated. I was mad. I was upset. I was so angry when I learned this. And the people that showed it to me, they somehow, some way got this knowledge in time, and they were able to become multimillionaires in 2008, 9, and 10. When everybody else was losing, they were making millions. And you know what? I didn't get it then. I didn't have my day in the sun then. But you know what? I'm going to have my day in the sun soon. I'm ready. My bank is ready. I've been positioning for this for a year. I'm going to be ready on this next downward cycle. And I'm going to do exactly what I wished I could have done and should have done and would have done back in 2008, 9, 10, 11. But I would have done it the right way, because I did buy, but I did it the conventional way. I took bank loans out. 80% of purchase price. I came up with the 20%. I came up with the renovation. I used the rent roll to support the rest. And that seems like a great model, right? It seems, in theory, it seems like that model would never end until you learn how banks really operate. You see how banks operate on the conventional side when you're just borrowing personally, or even with a business with personal guarantees, there's a limit. The bank will look at your debt to income ratio, and the thing that they will tell you is any one person can essentially have 10 mortgages. Most people, and I can't say all, but most people will never make it to 10. They will never make it to 10 because you will hit the debt ceiling and the debt to income ratio before you ever get to 10. And that's what happened. But see, that doesn't seem bad, right? When you hit that I call it the financial wall, the proverbial financial wall, when you hit that wall, okay, we just stop buying. But when you hit that wall, they don't just stop lending to you. They freeze all your lines of credit. They don't want to give you money. They scale everything back. And that's what happened. See, I had it all made. I was doing great. Like, sure, it was tough. I wasn't making a ton of money because I was scaling. 36 units from 9 to 2014, not bad for a young guy. But when they locked me up, I had nowhere else to turn because I didn't understand the principles of using other people's money. I didn't understand that it's not about your actual resources. It's about how resourceful you can be. And I didn't understand that all I needed to do was go one step further and look at other people and solve their problems. Because here's the secret, everybody. This is the most important thing I can say during this whole thing. You want to be successful? You need money. You need money for all your real estate deals or any business that you're doing. If you need money, it's out there. It's all around you. There's more than you could ever spend in your lifetime in just the vehicles I talked about, the 401ks, the IRAs, and the hidden equity. But the problem is, to get that money, you have to solve people's problems. You have to become an expert in solving other people's problems. And I got good news for you. Everybody's got the same exact problem. They all want to make more money. So if you can just solve that one problem of having them make more money, you literally will have access to millions, if not billions of dollars at your disposal at any given time. But what you have to do is you have to stay extremely conscious and focused on them, not you. Your deal is an opportunity to solve their problems. Your deal is not your opportunity anymore. Your opportunity is what will solve their problem. And when you learn how to present that opportunity to someone else in a way where you never ask for money, because the second you ask, you're done. You want money and you ask for it, you're going to be just like me when I was 17. No, no way. Heck no. Absolutely not. You can't ask for money. You have to solve people's problems. The most successful people in the world, what they do or what they did, and they continue to do, is solve a problem. That's it. They became a disruptor and they solved someone's problems. And every one of you watching or listening to this, or however you hear this, you all have the ability, the innate ability to solve a lot of people's problems with whatever it is you're doing. You just have to learn how to do that. And it's not hard. You just need to think like a bank and mimic the bank, and remember that it's about them, not you. And if you give, you get. It's the ultimate golden rule. It's the universal law. And once you learn that and you subscribe to that and you're not fake about that, that's when you will get. And we talked about that earlier as well.
Fantastic. Well, Chris, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. I feel like we've been treated with so much passion, and you know, I'm very grateful that you would come on and share some of your time and get really fired up today. So
I love it, man. And I'm sorry I go down those rabbit holes. I just, man, I love this stuff so much. And I just want people to know what I know so they can change their lives.
Dude, I love rabbit holes. They're the best. You get to find cool stuff like this, what we found at the end of it.
You got it.
Again, thank you very much to everybody who's watching and listening. I want to thank y'all very, very much. Your time is very valuable. So I'm very grateful that you choose to share some of it with us today. So thank y'all. Thank you, Chris. And I'll see you all on the next episode. Take care now.